Thanks everyone for joining. We're gonna just wait another minute or two for any stragglers and then we'll get started. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start. Thank you all for joining today. Little do some intros first. My name is Jesse Guillen. I'm the Infrastructure Policy Coordinator at Department of Finance and Administration, Infrastructure Division. We also have Haley Brown, who is one of the Deputy Directors, and also Scott Wright, who is a Deputy Director. Wesley Billingsley, our Director, may join later. He had a conflict at this time, so he may join at a later date. This is being recorded, so we will post this on the website afterwards. Can other people hear me? Haley, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
It
looks like one person.
Two different people. Oh, okay, just Shalene. It might just be you, Shalene. Apologies. Okay, thanks, Frank, for that confirmation.
Okay. Thank you. What's he doing? Oh yeah. So it'll be recorded. This will be recorded. We'll post it on the website afterwards. And so if you need to access it later on to get a review, or there are other people within your organization that you want to share with, you'll be able to do that. If you have questions as we're going through the various slides, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll most likely just wait until the end to address them because your questions may be addressed as we go through the slides. But any questions that you have, post them there and then we will get to them at the end. So with that, I'm going to start, and let me get this pulled up. Give me 1 second here. All right. So the webinar today is about the Capital Development Program Fund. It was created in 2024, signed into law in March of 2024, and it created a different source of funding for capital outlay. It started off with very little. The first funding was appropriated this last session, and it's 24 million. But because of the way that funding is generated, by 2050, it's estimated to have over $300 million. So in the long term, it'll provide a larger source of capital funding that is stable and more reliable and not as dependent on oil and gas revenue. So we're, as I said, it's a more stable and recurring source of funding. There will be application process for these projects, unlike normal capital where you just submit the request to your legislator or the governor. There is a strict timeline with the expenditure for these funds. The bill was signed on April 11th, 2025, and there is a strict 2-year timeline for expenditure of these funds. So they will be reverted on April 11th, 2027, and there's no opportunity for reauthorization. So, those projects that you want to use this funding for need to be really at the end stage of either funding or construction, so that we can get that money out the door. By the time these funds arrive, you'll have 18 months to expend them. And then we also, per the policy, which is posted on our website, we are devoting 40% of the available funding to rural, frontier, and tribal communities. So what are the goals of the program? Okay, stable fund revenue, as I mentioned, so that we're not entirely dependent on oil and gas revenue. It's going to be a more transparent allocation process because of the application that we will have. It's prioritization of projects. So your project needs to be ready. We're going to look at what the community needs are for that, the economic impact, and your track record. How well have you been spending capital outlay that you've received in the past? And then so the fairness and funding distribution. We don't want this funding to be strictly utilized within the Rio Grande corridor. We want to look at those other areas, underserved areas that also benefit and need this funding. Accountability. So just like regular capital, there will be quarterly reports telling us how you are spending that money. And then we'll provide reports to the legislature as well on the projects and the status of those. Oops, sorry about that. All right, who can apply? Eligible applicants are counties, municipalities, public schools, special districts like acequias, land grants, solid waste authorities, and federally recognized Indian nations, tribes, and pueblos. So pretty much anyone who normally gets capital outlay can do this. We will, as much as possible, try and steer clear of nonprofits and really focus on going directly to these entities. Funding limits and requirements. So some of you may have read a little bit about the program before. For this particular pot of funding, which was appropriated in House Bill 450 this last year, 24 million, it is allocated specifically for project completion, meaning this funding is the last amount that your entity needs to complete this project. So it's not a source of funding to get started. It's not that middle source of funding that gets you a little closer to the end line. It's that last piece of the puzzle that's needed. With that in mind, there are two barriers to that. The first is that the amount needed can't exceed $1 million or 20% of the total project cost. So if you have a large project and you need, if I can do the math in my head, if you have a $10 million project and you have 9.5 million, this would be a good source of funding to get that 500,000 you need to complete the project. If you have a $2 million project and you're still short $1 million, this is not going to be that source of funding for you to complete that. A little bit about the application process and review timeline, and Haley will go over the application itself on here. Deadline is August 31st, so you still have about 3 weeks to submit that application. It is live now on our website. It's via Amplifund, so if you have an account already, that's great. You can go ahead and log in and start that application. If you need to create an account, you can do that as well through the link on the website. We will review all the applications by September 15th, and we will notify the entities of award notification by October 15th. So the policies that are on the website, and I encourage you to look at those just to review again what's being reviewed in this webinar. You have to adhere to those by July 31st of this year. So you should already be adhering to them, specifically the audit requirements, and we'll go over that a little bit later. So just like regular capital, as I mentioned earlier, you'll have quality progress reports that you'll have to submit to LGD. We do have a standardized reporting form that will be used for that. And there will also provide annual reporting to LFC. That date will not be August 31st this year. It'll be in October. Skip through that. Okay, so on the application form, those of you who have used Amplifund before, you're probably familiar with it. For those of you who are not, I'm going to hand it off to Haley, who will go through the steps needed to fill this out.
Great, thanks, Jesse. As some of you may know, we're moving to using Amplifund to accept grant applications across a lot of programs here at DFA. So if you have already used the system before, perhaps for New Mexico Match Fund, you may be familiar with this, but if not, I'll give you a high-level overview. You'll find the application link on the IPDD website, and it will take you to this page where you'll see the high-level overview of the opportunity. In order to apply, you will click where it says apply right there in the top right-hand corner of the screenshot. You can go to the next slide, Jesse. So it's important to know if your entity already has Amplifund to manage grants from DFA. If you already have a New Mexico Match Fund grant, then your or have applied for a New Mexico Match Fund grant, then your entity has already used Amplifund, and you need to apply using your organization's Amplifund account. If you're new to Amplifund, please register for an account, and you will do that by clicking the register button when it prompts you to log in. I've also linked in these slides, which will get uploaded to the website, a new user registration training video in case you have any trouble navigating that process. But it's important that if you verify with the various folks at your entity you apply for grants to make sure that you're not creating a new account for your entity if you already have one. And if you want us to double check for you, we can always do that. This funding is only available for entities in the state of New Mexico, just to answer a question in the chat. So you can continue, Jesse, to the next slide. Okay, so when you finally get in and set up your Amplifund account, this is what the first page of the application will look like. It will be asking you for your project information. The name of your project is the project you're applying to receive CDPF funding from, and then your award requested is the total request you have from the CDPF award. Next slide.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing on that for the name of the project. If you've received previous capital outlay for this, if you use the same award language that's in the bill for this, that would be probably the most helpful, so that we can make sure we know exactly which project this is for.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. I'll also just note quickly that you can see as it shows on the top, you can always save and continue and come back to this later in the system. as well as download a copy of it for your review. Okay. So the next series of questions in the application will be asking about your entity information, including the entity that's requesting the funding, as well as the entity that owns the asset. This will help us double check that this project is eligible. We're also asking for project locations, the municipality where the project is located, as well as the county. And then we have a section for you to provide us a narrative description of your project. We've given you pretty explicit instructions in this section on what to include. Just please note that this text box in the application is limited to 3,000 characters. So while we want you to cover a wide variety of topics and give us a good answer to this question, you should limit your response to 3,000 characters. All right, and then the next section of the application will be asking about financial information. And so you will be entering in this first question the total funding you've secured to date for this project as well. And then on this chart, you'll be entering the different funding sources that you've secured. So please put the name of the funding source in the first text box on the table, as well as the dollar amount in the second box on the table. And then if there's anything else that is relevant for us to know about the funding secured, maybe there's expiration dates that you want us to be cognizant of or stuff like that, you can enter that in this text box here. But this is where we're going to help make sure that you meet those two criteria that Jesse mentioned at the top. Go ahead, Jesse. All right, so the next part of the application is compliance and certification. So as required by the policy for this program, you have to be compliant with the Public Finance Accountability Act, which is the executive order compliance, as we previously mentioned it, that called it here in DFA land, that has been codified through this bill, House Bill 493 of 2025's regular legislative session. So you'll need to upload relevant document that shows that you meet the requirements of this. This could be a copy of your audit. It could be a screenshot from the Office of the State Auditor's website showing that you've submitted your most recent audit. So whatever documentation makes the most sense to submit to us, you can submit that there. And then we ask that you certify that if a grant is awarded to your entity, it will provide all funding necessary to complete the project or a usable phase of the project as is required by this year's funding, and that that the funding requested does not exceed those two caps, so the $1 million, nor does it exceed 20% of the total project cost, whichever is left. So yes, Regina, IPDD stands for Infrastructure Planning and Development Division. You'll find it on our website under and I'll put the link in the chat when I'm done presenting as well. Okay. After you complete the project information in the application form, which is what we've been looking at so far, you'll then complete the budget for your requested CDPF award. Just note that your total budget has to equal the award requested on the project information page. So as you can see in this example, there is a discrepancy where the total amount that was budgeted is different than what they entered on the project information page. You will not be able to proceed with the application if you do that. So make sure that you include the total dollar amount from the project information page, and that's what you're budgeting when you get to the budget. And thank you, Donna. I will try to slow down, but this is being recorded. You can always watch it back too.
And on this point, Haley, we did talk to an entity that has already submitted an award, and they had an issue with this. And so I want to clarify that when you put the budget in, it's not the overall budget for the whole project. It's the budget for the amount that you're requesting from CDPF. So if you put in, the entire budget, it's not going to let you go forward because that will be in excess of what you're requesting from the fund.
Great. There are a lot of resources online that can help you learn about using Amplifund as an applicant. We'll make sure that you have access to these resources. They're linked here in the slideshow, but this will be available on our website as well. Has some high-level application tips. You can complete it in any order. So if you want to do the budget first, you can do that and then go back to project information. You'll see in the top, there's like circles that tell you what section you are in, and you can use those to navigate to different sections of the application. As I mentioned, you can save your application and come back to it, but you need to either save it or mark as complete to save your work. It won't do that automatically for you. Once you have gone through a section and you mark it as complete, you can still go back and edit And you can do that by indicating you're marking it as in progress. And in order to submit the application, you have to mark every section as complete in order to hit the submit button. So once you submit your application, you cannot edit it, but you can withdraw it if you need to do that. And you can always reach out to myself and Jesse if you have any specific questions about that. I think that's everything I was going to cover. Let's move through the rest of the content with Jesse, as I think it's going to answer some of the questions in the chat. And then after that, we will go through any of the remaining questions.
Thank you, Haley. So as she mentioned, audit compliance is one of the requirements of really any grant that DFA provides. So I encourage you to look at the Public Finance Accountability Act. It's section 6-3B-1 of an MSA. And in addition, there are a few avenues that you can take if you do not have the most recent two audits. I'm not going to go over those here, but you can look at the bill and see all the requirements that are included there. So again, there are rural, frontier, and tribal communities that have a set aside of minimum of 40% in the bill. And so we have definitions of rural, tribal, community, and frontier areas are, so you can look at those and see if your entity falls into any of those. Certified completion, that you've just officially confirmed in writing that all the funds have been fully expended. Again, date of appropriation, so that goes back to that April 11th, 2025 date. So the clock is already ticking on being able to use those funds. And then we had some questions when the bill was passed about the term project completion. So we checked with LFC to get what they thought that term means, and usable phase does qualify. So if your project is broken into phases, and one of them is half of the building, and you can use that half once it's complete while you wait to get funding for the other half, that counts as project completion for that phase. You can request and receive funding for that. So if you decline the funding or for whatever reason are unable to use it, we can and may rescind the grant, and we will reallocate it as soon as we are able to another project that's on the waiting list if we're not able to fund every request that comes in. So some of the factors that may result in rescinding those grants are if you have significant changes to your project, which maybe makes it that you're not quite as ready to proceed as you were before. If you fall out of that audit compliance, or lack of compliance with the grant agreement terms, including reporting requirements. And also, when you receive the grant agreement from LGD within DFA, you have to execute it within 60 days, or that award will be rescinded and reallocated to a different entity. So again, just going back to the timeline, March 2024, the bill was signed. July 31st, you have to comply with the funding policies. August, I didn't put this in here, August 31st is the due date for the applications. We will review them by September 15th, and then we will notify the various entities by October 15th if they've received awards. So I know I went through that quickly. I wanted to just give everyone an overview, and I want to make sure that we have enough time to go over all of the question and answer.
Yeah, Jesse, if you want, I can go ahead and read these questions and we can kind of tag team responding.
Yeah,
that sound good to you?
Great. Yeah.
Okay, so from Regina, she asked, when you say total cost of project, does that include design and construction?
If that is what is on your ICIP, yes, then that would be total cost. That would include that.
Okay. And as I clarified earlier, only political subdivisions of the state of New Mexico are eligible to apply. Steve asked, will this impact the existing capital outlay system and process? I think Steve, that's a very forward-thinking question. Jesse and I do not know the answer to that question. We are just the administrators of the funding as designated by the legislature. So I encourage you to speak to your legislator about that question, as well as tune into the Legislative Finance Committee hearings as they are talking about how to best use this fund in their hearings. Anything you'd add on that, Jesse?
I'll just say at this point, it's a supplemental source of funding that you can use for projects, and there are certain parameters for these funds that don't exist for capital outlay that you request from the legislators and the governor. So, just keep that in mind.
Great. And in response to Regina's other question, I just went ahead and put the link to the CDPF page on the Infrastructure Division's website in the chat. Renee asked, can we include contingency costs in the project estimation costs? My answer to that is no, this has to be actual project costs, as that is also the policy for capital outlay, that those all have to be used for actual implementation of your project.
Yes, I would agree on that. I think the projects that we're looking to fund would be at the point where you probably know the total cost and maybe not need that contingency.
Great. Like I said, Julie, I just put the link into the site specifically for this program that has the link to AMPA so you can find that there. Joni asked, are all capital projects eligible? What projects will not qualify? So to clarify, Joni, this funding for this calendar year, the year you're applying in right now, and the webinar we're giving right now, is only for completing distinct phases or complete projects. So any capital project could apply if it is completing a distinct phase or a complete project, and it meets those two thresholds. So it's either $1 million, up to $1 million, or 20% of total project costs, whatever is less. Anything you would add there, Jesse?
Just that, with normal capital that you request from legislature and governor, oftentimes there are requests for vehicles. We are not considering vehicles in this source of funding. So it's really true infrastructure, buildings, roads, water projects, stuff like that.
Great, thanks for that. Frank asked, can this funding be used to start and complete projects, buildings? Design is complete. So if you've, this cannot be used to start a new project, but it can be used to complete existing projects. That is the legislative appropriation language for this year's CDPF funding. So if you've completed design, but you do not have construction funding, and this would help you complete that project, then I do believe that would be an eligible use case.
I agree.
How long will it take for the entity to receive a grant agreement after award?
As soon as possible. I don't, Haley, maybe you can speak to more about what the general timeline is from LGD, because I'm not too familiar with that.
I would say typically 30 days could be what is expected. Hopefully sooner. That would be our goal.
And on the timeline, I know we have October 15th as when we'll let entities know if we're able to do that sooner, and therefore get the grant agreement out sooner, we will do that. But that's just our deadline to make sure that we get it out to you.
Yep. And Veronica asks, can mutual domestics apply? Yes, if your mutual domestic is a political subdivision of the state of New Mexico, you are eligible to apply. So if your mutual domestic is a public mutual domestic. Lawrence asked, is this reimbursement like capital outlay? Yes, this will function just like any other capital grant you get from DFA or another state agency. What is the due date for grant submittal? The slide indicated July 2025 to comply with the new funding policy. Jesse, remind us of the due date. I'm going to reread that second part so I can better understand it myself.
So due date for applications is August 31st. The July 2025 date is just the entity has to be in compliance with the policies by that date. So that doesn't relate to the application itself.
Okay. Lawrence asked if TIF projects are eligible to apply.
Yes, they are. That would fall under tribal, and within that 40% of the 24 million that we're dedicating to rural frontier and tribal projects. So certainly if the entity has received TIF funding in the past, but it's not quite enough to complete the project, and what is needed falls within that $1 million 20% threshold, then absolutely that can be an eligible project.
Great. Brandon asked, if a project doesn't have capital outlay but is funded through other sources, is it eligible for this funding?
Yes, as long as, you know, all the other aspects are abided by, meaning it's an eligible entity and it again falls within that $1 million 20% threshold, then yes, it would qualify.
Great. And then you went ahead and answered the next question, was the min max. So it either has to be, the application can be up to $1 million or 20% of the total project cost, whichever is less. So that's to answer your question, Frank. Lori, yes, this is being recorded and you will be able to access the slides and recording on the CDPF website, which I have added to the chat again. That is correct. We may need to update the deadline on the website, Jesse. It looks like it lists the old date still.
Yes, I will have DFA do that, or IT do that.
We'll make sure that gets corrected to the correct deadline. Our apologies. We were hoping to get this all out to you sooner and we had some delays. All right. What is the July 31st funding policy compliance? Please just read the policy. That will give you a clear idea. It's mostly to make sure that you're in compliance with any auditing requirements and that your project is otherwise eligible on those caps that Jesse and I talked about previously. Ruby asked if they can apply for more than one project. Yes,
there's no limit on the number of applications. As I mentioned, the only thing that we're going to really be looking at is that 40% sort of set aside for rural, frontier, and tribal areas.
Great. Latoya asked, are housing authority properties eligible to apply? As long as your housing authority is a political subdivision of the state or attached to a political subdivision of a state. So if it's a municipal housing authority, a tribal housing authority, then you all would be an eligible applicant. If it's a private housing authority or it's not attached or it's organized as a nonprofit, then you would not be eligible. Max asked if the project has to be on the entity's ICIP to apply.
It's a good question, Max. While there's no requirement that it be on the ICIP, there is priority given to those projects that are on the ICIP. We have more information on where those projects are at, where the funding's at, and it really demonstrates that those projects are a priority for that entity. So not required, but strongly suggested.
Great. And then Joni asked about sending the slideshow. Joni, please follow the link in the chat. It will be uploaded to the website for the CDPF fund. The recording and the slides will be uploaded to that website. Are there any other questions at this time?
People have, if people want to ask questions via their mic, just raise your hand and I can unmute you. All right, Logan, go ahead.
Logan, go ahead.
I think you have to unmute yourself as well.
While Logan is figuring out how to unmute, I'll just answer Jamie's question in the chat, which is there is no, this is Claire's question. There is no match requirement for this, but it has to meet those other criteria. So it has to be, you have to have capital funding already in some form of another, whether it's capital outlay or a different funding source, right? And this is to distinctly complete the project or complete a distinct phase. So while there's no matching requirement, right, you have to be in a place where you've already started this project. Yes, Jamie, if you were unable to complete the ICIP, but you received capital outlay, you can still apply, but we will be giving priority to projects listed on an entity's ICIP. Logan, you should be able to unmute. If you can unmute yourself, we're going to move on to Martine, who has their hand up. Martine, I'm enabling your mic right now, or Martin. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Martine's fine.
Okay.
So my question is, if we had a project that just went out to bid and we have a shortfall, can we apply?
Yes, as long as there's, I think proof that that is the final amount needed to complete the project.
Great, thank you.
And that's one thing that I want to stress on this is that this isn't just, you have $2 million and you need 3 million more and you want to get 500,000 from this. It's not just that next step. It's the final step. So please don't apply for it if you will need additional funding after this in order to complete the project. You will not be awarded, you'll not be given a grant award from this fund if it doesn't complete the project.
All right, I just did answer a question in the chat that all the IGAs or grant agreements will be executed through DFA. Logan, it looks like your question got answered. Sorry, you're not able to unmute. I'm going to go ahead and lower your hand, and then I'm going to allow, I think, Marietta, you should be able to unmute and ask your question now.
Oh, there. Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay, it took me a while to figure out where to mute myself. Can you use mix it with federal funds, or do you have to have a project that has capital outlay with it?
No, any funding
Yeah.
source funding the project is fine. It just has to complete a distinct phase or the whole project and meet those thresholds requirements of $1 million as the cap or 20%, whichever is less.
So because we're already we're done with the design, we're ready, we've gotten our final cost estimate, and now it exceeds what we originally started with because we're years later. That's okay if it's already done with the design phase and ready to bid out.
Yes, that's correct. Marietta, for your information, I'm going to put another grant program in the chat that you'd be eligible for as well, which is our federal compliance offset grant. I'm putting that through the New Mexico Match Fund. That might be another good fit for the exact use case you're describing. So feel free to check that out and email me if you have any questions.
Perfect. Thank you.
Could this funding be used for temporary structures or until a new structure is built? So I'll start, Jesse, and you can add if you think there's more to add here. It has to be for a capital infrastructure asset. So it has to have a useful life. The way that's usually defined is that it has to have a useful life of 10 years and meet the capitalization threshold of $10,000. I don't know what you would add there, Jesse. I don't think that's a good, that would be a good fit for this program, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're looking to fund permanent structures, not temporary ones. And then I saw Claire above asked about a phase of a project. So yes, a phase of a project, as long as that phase can be used. So, again, we're not going to fund planning and design with this. We're not going to fund a phase that is the shell of the building and it still needs to be, have other completion to it. It's a usable phase of a building that it can stand alone for a time if need be. Lawrence asked about tribal funds. Project is funded through the tribe and the project has a shortfall. Yes, you can request funding for whatever that shortfall is.
Yes, road projects will qualify. If you have any specific questions about qualifications, please read the policy on the website. Are there any other questions at this time?
I can stick around for a little longer if people think of something. But otherwise, thank you all for joining us. Again, we'll post this on the website, the recording and the slideshow, so you can look at it and review. But thank you all for joining, and we look forward to seeing your applications. Remember, deadline is August 31st.
Yes, and to answer Prudence's question, this is the first webinar on CDPFs because this is the first round of funding that's available. And then the Public Finance Accountability Act is the bill that codified some of the requirements of the executive order on audit compliance. So it actually shouldn't be new information to you. It's just how that executive order was codified into law. Whatever agency you work with to get capital outlay, they'll likely be able to provide you more information on how you can make sure you're in compliance with that, whether that's local government division here at DFA or NMED or another state agency.
And Haley, Lawrence asked about project updates in BFM. Can you respond to that?
These will be, you'll likely update us through Amplifund or a separate reporting form, but we don't use BFM for any capital project updates at this time. Thank you all for joining us. As always, feel free to email Jesse and I if you have any questions after. Prudence, you can shoot me an email. If you want to raise your hand, Prudence, I could look right now, actually. And I can figure out if you want to put in the chat what entity you're with. I'm allowing your mic, Prudence.
Hi, I'm with the City of Bloomfield.
Okay, I don't think so, but I'll double check. Just give me a second. No, Prudence, Bloomfield has not created an account yet, so you would make a new account.
Okay,
Thanks for
all right,
checking.
thanks.
Great. Jesse, I think we can go ahead and close out the meeting.
Yes, I'll put in my email.
Oh, yes, I'll do mine too. Sean, I just put my email on the chat, and Jesse did as well.
Yep. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and formally, who would we contact to see if we have an Amplifund account? Can you tell me what GSWCD stands for, Rose? If you raise your hand, I can unmute you and I can check. Or you could put it in the chat, either way. I'm just not familiar with that acronym. Guadalupe. Okay, let's look. No, you do not have an Amplifund account, Rose, for Guadalupe Soil and Water. Okay, great. We're going to go ahead and end the event now, unless that new message is oh, yep, I can check for Elvia. Elvia does not have an account. Catron County does not have account. El Dorado Area Water and Sanitation District does not have an account. Some Pueblo of Laguna. Let's check on that one. Pueblo of Laguna does not have an account, Annie. Ooh, wow, I'm loving all this. I'm getting to test my real-time skills. Let's see. Frank Chimisal Mutual Domestic does not have an account. You know, I don't believe the Navajo Nation does not have an account.
Rose, if you go on to the IPDD website, Haley put in the link earlier. If you just go to the application, there's a way to register as opposed to log in. So just click that registration link.
And there'll be instructions from the slideshow too. Pueblo San Ildefonso does not have an account. Let me check on Aztec. Aztec does not have an account. Blue Water WSD does not have an account. Let's see, Cheryl, let me check for Mountain Air. Mountain Air does not have an account.
Haley will be getting lots of
new
accounts in there. Yeah.
Tucumcari, let me check. Tucumcari does not have an account. Mescalero Apache does have an account, Emmett, and it's with, and I can tell you who is listed as your account administrator. One moment.
Let's see. Leandra, to answer your question about Navajo Nation, it depends on, and maybe Haley can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it depends on what the project is, if it's a Navajo Nation project or if it's a project specific to a chapter.
Correct. I would suggest, this likely will be managed in the same way that the capital outlay appropriations for chapters are managed by the Navajo Nation, and would encourage you all to just have one account. But we could talk through that. It looks like Thora is the point of contact for Mescalero Apache, so you would just need to get her to add you as a user, Emmett. To get an account, you can just go ahead and click apply and then register when you go to login. Let me check on Portalis. Portalis does not have an account. Santa Fe County does have an account, so Sam, you'll need to work with your grants team to access that. Let me check on Hatch now. Hatch does not have an account. Las Cruces does have an account, Crystal, so you'll want to work with your grants team there to get access to it. Yes, Kendra, Leandra, there is an IGA process. This will be executed through grant agreements and IGAs. Cornelia, I see you're asking for senior center programs. I'm not sure what that question is related to. So if you can provide some further clarification or raise your hand and come off mute, we can.
If you're asking if senior center projects are eligible, yes, they would be.
Capital projects, but not
Yeah,
programs
no,
at senior
Yes,
centers.
and not vehicles.
Let's check on Grant County. Grant County does not have an Amplifund account. Sandoval County does not have an account. Doña Ana County does have an account, Rafael, so please work internally to figure out who can add you. Okay, Owinge, let's check. Okay, Owinge does not have an account. Okay, I think those are all of the outstanding account checks. Okay, good. Glad to see that, Cornelia. Hi, Lou. You'll create an account using the instructions in the slideshow, which will be updated here shortly after the webinar. You can also click on the link to apply and create your account by clicking register when you go to log in. Okay, I am going to officially end the event. Thank you, everyone.